All right, we're live. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name's Nathan Everett and I operate Immersive Insights. This is the second episode of the Colleague Chronicles, and we're live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. In this series, I'll be connecting with guys in my network, guys that have had a really big impact on their relative fields and also taught me a few things along the way. Today, I'm joined by Gavin Maher, who's the Managing Director of 8 Ball Global. And without giving too much away, I think we've worked together for about 2 decades, Gav. And over the last probably decade, we've worked on a few complex problems, collaborated on a few things, and built a couple of frameworks that I still use in business today. And I'm sure you probably do as well. So, look, mate, it's great to have you here. I consider you a very good colleague, good friend, mentor, and at times a good guidance counsellor as we navigate through life, mate. So I appreciate you joining us.
I thought you were going to say at times a good guy. I was going to say, mate, you overrated me a bit there.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate the words, mate. Yeah, you're the same, mate. Friend, colleague. I've learned a lot, and certainly used some of the things that we built together in the WestTrack world, CNH, especially the CNH world. So similar philosophy. So really good chatting to you. Apologise, I might look a little dusty. I just got off a plane got off a plane at 3 a.m. So just a little dusty, So hopefully I make sense, or more sense than I normally do.
I was kind enough to send you a list of questions that I was going to ask you, but I wasn't kind enough to send you the ones that I rewrote this morning. So
that's good.
We'll get into that, mate. So to kick off, how did you get started in your career? What's your background?
So started at WestTrack. So I as a young bloke, whatever it was, 20, 21, I wanted to go to Europe for, I think we were talking about 18 months. I had a mate, we were sort of sharing a house together. We said, and he was working at Komatsu as a fitter. And so really I just had to the goal was to assemble 10 grand and just get going. So applied for a couple of jobs. I got a job at Australia Post behind the counter. So I did that, got the job. And then I went for a job at WestTrack and pretty much did an interview with a bloke called Martino Carratti, who's just retired, Mike Phelan, and a guy called Eddie Johnson. And I had no idea, roughly what I was talking about. But I was went to the interview, did enough, said enough to get the job. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera. And then, pretty much they gave me the job. So I didn't take the Australia Post stuff. Worked in marketing for 8 or 9 months. That went pretty well. And then the guy who was the boss was kind of moving towards retirement. And because he was doing that, I started doing a lot and started taking over a bit and doing a heap of the work. And then some of the bosses would talk straight to me. And then this bloke sort of out of the blue retired after 9 months. And Jim Walker, who was the number 2 bloke at the company at the time, said, "Mate, you're doing the job anyway. Why don't you head up the marketing crew?" And so I was 22 years old or something. And it was bittersweet, because I obviously got a really good job, but didn't go to Europe. So, and that mate of mine never went as well. So I kind of cost him his European tour. So what do you do? So started, that was it. So I sort of did that and did it for maybe 5 or 6 years. Then Jim Walker, who obviously we both know, friend of ours, mentor of ours, he said to me, "Mate,"
the industry, yep.
Yeah, lots of people know him, good man. And so he pulled me in one day, he said, "Mate, you need to go and get stuck and start this cat rental store thing." And I'll tell you some home truths. So I didn't believe in the concept, realistically. So I felt that we've got customers that we're selling cat machines to. So I'm probably going to get hammered by someone who watches this later. I said, "What are you talking about?" But I felt we're selling cat machines to customers, and now we're going to start a rental store, and we're going to rent against these guys. So some other non-cat customer is going to rent a cat machine at a possibly lower price, and take their business. So I didn't agree with it. But anyway,
that's still a big in the industry today. That's still a big sentiment in the industry today. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so, and then that was my thought, and I was sort of 25, 26 when this concept was coming in. So I got to 27, and Jim says, "Look, mate, you need to get out." And I said, "Yeah, no thanks. No thanks, Uncle Jim." And So that was it. No thanks. Then he called me up again. Said, mate, you need to go and do this rental store. I said, yeah, no thanks, Jim. He said, mate, if you don't do it, that's fine, but there's no job here at WestTrack for you. And I'm pretty sure he was joking. We hope he was joking, but he basically said to me, look, mate, you've been around the industry a bit doing what you're doing, but you need to get your hands dirty. And he says, you'll thank me later. So at the time, I didn't really like it, to be honest, but sort of went home, talked to my girlfriend at the time and said, yeah, what do you reckon? And she just said, one thing she said, mate, he's looked after you, so maybe just go with what he reckons. So semi-begrudgingly, I said yes, but then once I'm in. So got into it and ran around, did the rental store for 4 or 5 years, and that went really well, built up some good relationships, understood. The thing that resonates for me now, doing what I do, is it actually gave me I thought I knew a few things about business, and maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. And I don't think that's quite right. And doing it at the rental store and sort of proving what you think, even at a young age, it's stood me in good stead for now, because it actually gave you the confidence that, I kind of, we're Australians, right? We don't pump ourselves up, but it was almost saying, yeah, mate, I've got half a brain here. I kind of know what I'm talking about. So I reckon I can, make a fist of it. So when later I started this business, I kind of had those years of saying, well, I've seen, what it takes to run a business from starting from sand, building the buildings, doing rents on the buildings, paying the water rates, fixing machines, doing QA systems, dealing with vendors, customers who are saying they're going to kill you. We had a couple of those. And if I can, I know I'm talking a bit, mate, but say jump in and interrupt me. But what I said at the start, I remember as a 27-year-old, I shouldn't say kid, that's a man, right? But now we're a bit older, we say 27 is a kid. Going to see Daniel Ricciardo's dad. And I heard that he was ropeable, about this. Well, maybe not ropeable, let's not use that word, but he was he had the same view as you and I. It shouldn't be there. So I was a cat person, a WestTrack person. So I said, I'm going to go see all these WestTrack customers and front up to them as a kid, or as a 27-year-old, and tell them what I'm doing. So I remember going in there, and I walked in, he gave me a serve, telling me, well, this is rubbish, you're going to rent machines against us, all the things I said before. And I just said to him, mate, probably shouldn't say this, right, but I agree with you. I have the same sentiments, but I said, the only thing I can do for you, and I'm not here to rent you a cat rental machine. I'm here as a WestTrack person with the yellow blood, as we used to call it. And I said, so I'm not going to rent you stuff, but what I'm here to guarantee you, I will never, ever rent a machine to a non-WestTrack Caterpillar customer for under market rate, so then they can compete with you. I'm going to rent it to non-cat customers because we need to make a buck and I need to do my job properly, but I'll never do it to the detriment of you guys, and I'll never screw you. And I think I kept my end of that bargain, and I never met, the Ricardos again, but yeah, that was something that I was kind of keen on. So that whole sort of experience helped me. And then we sort of roll on to that. I always said 35, because I was a young age to sort of, run a department, then get involved in cat rental store. I always like challenging myself. So I always said 35, I'm going to go and do something else. But it was more, if I'm not being challenged and if I'm not learning something, I'm going to do something else. And got to 35 and I felt like WestTrack was an awesome place, but I don't feel like every day, mate, I'm a bit scared here. What's happening here? Or I don't know what's going on, seeing something new. So, but it took me to 36. I actually started this at, it was, I think it was, 25th of August. I shouldn't tell you much. Should I say my age? I'm just going to say 25th of August, right? And something like that. People can do the numbers. 25th of August, 2000 and whatever, mate. You can figure it out.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So doing this 15 years now. We just clicked 15 years last August, so we're in year 16 now.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. And getting back to another point that you made about proving yourself right, one of the things that I did learn from you was actually putting something into practice, knowing it didn't work, and then going, right, okay, it hasn't worked for me. and then saying, right, I was wrong with that assumption, and then sort of replanning and going again.
Yeah.
That's something I did learn with that work that we did, with CNA network and stuff like that.
Well, I just found, and here we go, mate. We're gonna have a love session here and pat each other on the back. But I actually kind of enjoyed working with you, and that whole crew, right? The Hawks and there's a few, interesting characters in there as well that we met. But because we did that, well, I felt, because I'd say my business model is, it's not about, you do 1, you do 2, you do 3, and I'm telling you, and that's how you make a burger. Yeah. It's about, right, where's their weakness? What do we need to insert into here? Okay, there's strength in there. We don't need to touch that. And we were really agile, I feel. It sounds like one of those words, agile. I'll write that on the board. But it was kind of, we did that. We looked at stuff like, that's not working. Okay, because we were about objectives, the result. We weren't about, this is my process. And I feel like guys like us, look at your LinkedIn stuff, and people will go, they're just process guys, mate. This is what mate, we're outcome guys. If a bloke wants to, if he's doing 200 grand a month or $1 million a month, and he wants to go to 1.2, that's what we do. And so, but sometimes it's hard to say that. So we show some of the tools to get to that. And I see your stuff showing the tools, and people might say, that's the pro. I would say, mate, he's got a good process, but the guy's about delivering stuff, delivering an outcome. And I think that's unique in some ways to these consultants. And that's why I don't like saying I'm a consultant, and you're probably the same, is because the consultant, sometimes that game is, no, this is my process. I'm going to give you a report, and then you're going to read it, and I'm going to give you a bill, and I'll walk away, and I really don't care what happened. But we're about, mate, you're making $100. I guarantee you make 150, or we don't get paid, mate. And
the accountability.
Yeah, and we don't survive in this industry. I mean, we've seen plenty of people be consultants, mate, and they do a couple of things. After a while, it gets pretty hard. You don't stick around 15, years, and yourself, mate. You've been around for ages, and I know you just started this, mate. But I fully expect. Well, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 20, but we're doing this because it's kind of fun helping people. Well, I reckon anyway.
100%, and the exposure you get to different industries is immense. Like the different learnings, different practices, and different processes is huge. That's kind of what I like doing at the moment. Yeah,
for sure. It's like and it's really interesting because people, it's funny, mate. We're trying to do that do not disturb, like the screens. Suddenly, people message me, mate, when we're doing this. Yeah. So sorry if my eyes are just shifting because I'm seeing these messages, but getting back to that, so people go, so what's your experience? Mining, construction, right? A bit about that. But what we do is, it doesn't matter. It's like because we got a lot of, obviously there's objective stuff. There's the people engagement stuff. We talk about empathy a lot, and the transparency and bringing people together, and it just works everywhere. And as you know, I sort of did some work in the entertainment industry and hospitality industry, and it was all the same. Not exactly the same tools, because you modify it because people are different. Like someone working the mining game on 160 is going to behave differently than a 20-year-old getting $23 an hour working 10 hours a week. But it's the same philosophy. You just got to, that empathy piece, understanding, right, this is what makes this person sort of get interested. And
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it, mate.
That leads me to the next question, because that stakeholder engagement piece is huge when you go out on your own, and it's something that I'm sort of developing and sort of use you as the reference point in that space as well. What is the key to the stakeholder engagement? I wrote in the bio that I think you're the gold standard of change management, stakeholder engagement. What's the key for you? What's the secret piece of that recipe?
Oh, look, for mine, so I like dealing with owners, and if you kind of, you know me reasonably well, the guys I'm dealing with, I just find it easier. So when you deal with corporations like there's 20 or 30 guys, so I've done that before, but it gets a lot more complicated because, and I feel like I'm going to jump subjects here, but I'm going to try to stay on track. But sort of, you'll say stakeholders. So who's the stakeholder? MDs and boards and all that. So they're all a bit different, and sometimes we're not going to touch those people, So if you're dealing with, I'm going to throw McMahon's because it's top of my head because we've been talking about them a lot, but you're dealing with certain guys at McMahon's, but you don't get to talk to the board guys. So then there's So, but you've got to understand where they're coming from. And so, like, a lot of the times I have like these dashboards, but I've got all like an array of dashboards, and you know what I'm like with the colors and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but most of it's about, like, firstly understanding it before you go in, and then conversations, because like, and I'm going to jump a bit, but say what I was talking about that when I was working at a pub, and we had, so the stakeholder got the owner, so he needs to make cash, and we understand that, and so we work around him. But then we have a bottle shop manager, a bar manager, and a bistro manager, and so they're employee, the stakeholder being the employee. But I sort of never looked at it. I never really wanted to group it because they were so different, and they were so in different stages of life. And I don't want to tell you some personal stuff, but I know you don't know who this person is. But one had some health issues that no one really knew, but I picked up because looking in her eyes, because my wife had the same. And so one day I asked the question, and then it became completely different in terms of what sort of that particular stakeholder in the business, what drove her behavior. So it's really hard not to I guess not get involved in this, but to look someone in the eye and understand them as a person, and then the empathy piece, because it's all this Zoom stuff is awesome, but as you know, we get on planes a lot. Well, mate, why don't you just talk to the guy? He's in Singapore. You can talk, but you go and sit with them and look them in the eye, and all of a sudden the conversation, you understand them, and then you're saying, this is what spinning a bit. This is what this person is trying to get out of life, and then life is work. It's like people are work-life balance. I reckon life's life, and sometimes you're working, and just like
very good way to put it. Yep.
Yeah, I'm doing business now, but mate, you're a mate of mine, so I'm kind of having a bit of a good time. And then my cousin has texted me on the top here. He hasn't texted me in like probably 6 months, and here he's texting me now. But it's and so that's how I view it. And so in terms of that engagement, there's so many levels. I think people do it as an academic exercise. Board engagement, employee stakeholder, customer stakeholder.
It's not.
You think about the customers. How many blokes are you talking to in that one company? And they're all completely. I think about the C&H world. Like how many? And I don't want to mention names, but we know who we're talking about. Like some of these guys, what drives their behaviour is it's so diverse.
And it was a very multicultural team as well. So you've got different belief structures that you have to navigate through their different cultural structures, some language barriers and stuff like that to navigate, which I guess now is pushing me into another direction about the work you're doing in Southeast Asia. You're in Cambodia, just got back from Indonesia, you're in Vietnam, Thailand, and places like that. How do you navigate those cultures, especially when you go from one to the other to the other? That's a huge change in mindset and a huge change in perception when you're dealing with all of those different things. And to do it successfully has got to be hard.
Yeah, it's definitely really challenging, but I really like it because, I think if you're doing something like this, you've got to have the genuine interest in people. And again, I'm not pump myself up, but I genuinely have interest in people and listening to their stories. And some of the mechanical issues is like, so as you know, I'll give you a bit of a quick rundown. I went Perth, Singapore, Bangkok, Phnom Penh, Hanoi, Vientiane, back to Bangkok, Mumbai, Singapore, Perth, and that was in like 12 days or something. But the interesting part of that is firstly money. So if you go, I got to get some cash out. Yeah, right. So how much do you get out? Okay, well, let's get $100 in it, because you go to say Vietnam and you have to pay taxis with cash. I've been to Bangkok and it works, the old Uber system, which they call Grab over there. But then suddenly your credit card doesn't work, or ANZ are saying, "Oh, someone's scamming you, mate. They're taking money out of your credit card," so they block it and you can't. And then they say, "Ring," and you're trying to, mate. Don't get me started on ANZ, right? So I'm going to bag them alive. Anyway, and then you've got no money, and so you have to all this. So then you've gone to 9 countries or whatever. You're taking out ridiculous amounts of money. And then the other mechanic is, so I have almond milk with a flat white or whatever, coffee. So you go to Indonesia, and I won't say this correctly, so apologies to the Indonesians, but you say, flat white, almond susu. And so, again, I didn't say that properly, but it means almond milk. So, yeah, almond milk, no problems. And I'm in Thailand and I'm hitting them with the almond susu, and they're all looking at me. What's wrong with this bloke? And and so even the languages, and so you'll say Swati Krap to say hello in Thailand, and you'll say Xin Chao in Vietnam. But sometimes I even forget what country I'm in. I'm trying to learn 9 languages. Again, it's that empathy piece. I don't want to be an arrogant Westerner, just going, mate, you will speak English, and I'm talking to you. So I'm trying that sort of. It does my head in a bit. But the other part of it is what we were talking about before. Understanding people, they're not all the same, so we'll group them as Asians or Southeast Asians, completely different view on the world, completely different education. Like you think about, so Bangkok is in the Thailand, gentle sort of people. Sometimes they won't say exactly what's going on because if it's going to embarrass someone. So we as Aussies will say, mate, you got something on your head there, buddy, or whatever. You got a piece of tissue. Or something. You're like, shit, sorry, mate. But we'll say or you'll tell me about your CRM system. I'll say that's fantastic, Nathan. Maybe not this week, but let's talk about next. Whatever. You understand where we stand. Sometimes in these countries, if it's going to embarrass someone, they'll just say they'll say something, but that's not quite what's going on. Yeah. And then you think about Cambodia, what happened to them, and I'm going to get the dates wrong, but 75 to 78 with the genocide, and so that they executed a lot of the people who are accountants, lawyers. So they're coming from a different base. Like they had millions of people executed, and so their whole society hasn't been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. So a lot of people who were in the farms are now trying to sort of become the lawyers and stuff. But it's only a few years ago. It's not long. So they're different how they think.
Yeah, you're right, 100%.
And you find, and again, I'm not an expert, so don't run away and say, "Oh, Gav said this is the truth." But this is only my version of the truth over the last 9-10 months. But you feel like the Cambodians will almost listen to what you say. If you say this, it's almost, yes, sir, I want to learn something. Because the Chinese will say something because they're in there heavily, and other countries, so like India, see the change where the Indians, you can see it with how they run the cricket world, and they've lifted themselves up. They definitely have more of an opinion. This is how it's going to happen, So yeah, I just find it really interesting, but it's tough to really have that empathy, because you fully don't. Sometimes you're trying to figure out where they're coming from, and I can't tell you all the details, but there's some people in Singapore I'm working with, and you hear them say something, but you don't understand the history and where that's coming from. And it's taken me 9 months to actually, and this just sounds like rubbish, right? Because I can't tell you the full story. If I could tell people the full story, you understand, but confidentiality reasons I can't. But it's taken me 9 months to understand what this guy has been telling me, because there's a whole heap of history that it takes a lot of time, a lot of going there, a lot of beers, which is not too bad. And then now we're actually cracking a good relationship, and I'm starting to understand him. And it's going to take 3 years for me to do something proper in Indonesia. But as you know, I'm a patient person,
Yep, very patient. So what in your travels, what are the sort of biggest challenges that are coming through there? We're seeing, push to electrification of, everything. We're seeing supply chain issues and stuff like that. What are those areas seeing? We sit in Australia, and we're a very rich country. Economically, we've been stable for a very, very long time. Those other areas are not. They're emerging markets. They're developing technologies and stuff like that. And the pressure the rest of the world puts on them is quite immense. And we don't feel that, especially with the electrification and stuff like that. What are the challenges that you're seeing over in those regions regarding sort of those business structures and the pressures they see daily?
So I've in different countries, I'm seeing different things. So we're looking to, there's some mining going on in Myanmar, but we know what's been going on in Myanmar for a long time. So those sort of pressures in the mining construction kind of game is quite different. And it's almost like we can't go in there and influence it, and we can't really understand it. And it's changing as we speak. I mean, if you look up sort of the northeast part of Burma, where the China border is. And I don't want to say too many political things, but it seems to be, the Chinese maybe, from what you read, it seems to be the Chinese supporting the regime, but now maybe there's a bit more support from the Chinese for some of these other groups, because there is, again, maybe I'm talking about school, but there might be a perception there's some sort of drug running going on, so the Chinese is trying to stop that going to their country. So that is completely different. The challenge is there. Then you sort of, like, say you go to Thailand, and you see Thailand, like, there's a lot of big companies now doing manufacturing in Thailand, and the more you talk to them, the more it's, how you have there's the Chinese and then the American, and then sometimes there's this little bit of a clash, and who do I side with? And it's almost like the Thais are sort of trying to stay right in that middle part to say, yeah, I'm not siding with anyone, mate. I want to be friends with everyone. And so you're starting to see a lot of these global customers doing work on there and taking their factories. And I went to Chonburi recently, and there's a number of factories going on there, a number of big facilities. So, but their challenges I'll jump to say Laos, for instance. So you think, Laos will be similar to Cambodia, but when you go there's a few Australian companies now working quite strongly in there, and their systems are so Australianised. They're, you go to a meeting, you feel like you're in Australia in the sense of all the hoops you've got to jump through, all the QA, all the paperwork you've got to do. So you feel like their challenges are like a little bit similar, but they can get staff, so they don't have the staffing challenges because there's a number of people. But skill staff, that's another issue. So if you're moving your operations from what it was to more of a structure that we're used to, then you have to have people that know what they're doing to train them and educate the whole workforce. So they start having those issues, which is a bit like us, the workforce challenges. Like over here, I know that there's a lot of people looking to bring fitters from Philippines, but again, because I'm sort of, we do mining, construction, like we both do, but because we work across industries a bit, and then we work for suppliers supplying to those guys, you see the staffing issues still, because guys, as people are getting paid better at some of the bigger companies, then they're taking the usual stuff. They're taking workers off the suppliers, so they're going, I need to pay more. What do I do? But if you pay one more who's leaving, then your whole cost structure goes. And you know what it's like. There's pressures from the big suppliers to say, don't lift your price. Keep your price down here. Or so it's that balancing act. So it's always that same thing. I mean, there's the electrification stuff. Yeah, there's some really new stuff going on there. So we see the FMGs, and there's some electric excavators going on, and as you know, I'm doing a lot of work. I'm involved heavily with equipment placement, and there's, we do sort of these cable reelers that reel in the cable on the back of an excavator. And I was explaining to my son, saying, he said, what is it, Dad? I say, well, mate, we get the vacuum cleaner, the times that we get you to go and vacuum under the table, and you're pulling it around, and you got the cord on the back, and then you go left, and then it gets wrapped. The cord gets wrapped around the chair, crying out loud, and it comes out of the wall and all that. You can't have that in the mine. You've got to get that cable. Now, of course, an excavator's not doing all that stuff, but when this excavator's moving, you got to make sure this cable is not doing all sorts of untidy things. So you got to reel it up. Yeah. But when you get into this, it's actually it's really complicated, because the heat on those cables sort of reduces the effectiveness of what's going through those cables. If the cable's too thick, so you want it thick so you can get some good power going through it. But if it's too thick, you can't roll it up. So then you got to thin enough to roll it, and then there's some danger in it. And to be honest, I'm trying to tell you something. I'm half ignorant, to be honest. Like you speak to some of those guys at equipment placement that I'm working with, and they know what they're talking about. And we go to meetings with BHPs and stuff. So that's a new world in Australia. But you go to Asia, and it's a lot of that's not coming. They're using sort of diesel, and that's where they're going with it. But then we see other sort of challenges. So there's so many like the biodiesel and all this sort of stuff, and then dirty fuel, and again, not a full bottle. I had a presentation yesterday about with this biofuel and biodiesel, the water gets in it, and then you get mold growing in it. And they showed me some pictures, and I'm sure this presentation was for effect to sell some of their cleaning products, but it makes sense. And there's a whole heap of different issues. And yeah, it just seems for me like, because I'm in so many places, I don't get fixated on one. So I guess if you work in Australia, you say, oh mate, the issue I'm seeing it so much is, can't get people or whatever it is. But because I'm talking to 10 or 11 countries, it's just, so it's diverse, and as you know, I sort of don't get caught up in sort of issues. I get caught up in kind of opportunities, so I sort of, the issues feels like, oh, there's an opportunity. Let's go and talk about that and understand more, which I'm trying to do.
Absolutely, mate. There's opportunity in every challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
So to finish up with, where are you off to next?
Well, sorry, mate, just pouring some water. So we think, there's a company in Thailand that's their head office is Malaysia, Thailand, but a lot of their senior guys are there. So we're going to head back there, but then we follow up. So we're talking to companies like RMA Group, who do vehicles, and they'll sell vehicles around the world for United Nations. So trying to just continue those relationships, because and we've had these discussions in the background. You go to these places and I hear it a lot, like, oh, I've seen them twice and I had some good meetings. I think I'm getting somewhere. And I think I'm really understanding, these markets, whereas I've had 4 meetings with these same people, and they've put me in a car, took me to their factory, took me 2 hours, brought me back. We had lunch. I don't think I'm in with them. I don't think I've gained their trust. And why should I? I'm just a guy who rolls in every, whatever it is, 2 months. So just keep developing those relationships. And then, so we're doing that in Thailand. There's a quote for a machine, a large, it's a large machine that moves excavators on mines. So you got a big excavator, it takes a long time to move it. You bang it on these and move it, save a heap of money, and you don't tear up undercarriage. So got a quote, northern Thailand. So we're doing that. There's another one in the Philippines. So I've got to go and meet those people again, try to get that trust sort of piece going. And some of it, there's some stuff going on in Vietnam as well. So I guess, and I was telling you before, my strategy for Asia, because I know to crack the Asian market, you got to develop these relationships. It takes a long time. So my initial, to guess, a bit like that reward, I'm like a dog. I need a reward, a little biscuit every now and again to feel good. So I kind of, the initial strategy was to do that, but then side by side is to find Australians. So go, Nath, mate, any blokes in Laos? And you say, oh yeah, Jimmy Phillips, and then try to get a meeting with them and go and see them, not just on the phone. And it's worked pretty good, because obviously if you're an Australian overseas, you're dealing with 1 or 2 guys that and then a lot of new friends you've made. But when you get an Aussie rolling up, talking with the accent, you become, unless you're talking absolute garbage, you become sort of friendly pretty quickly. So I've developed some good relationships with guys in Laos, Vietnam, and Thailand, a lot of these places. So just keep doing that. But yeah, there's some new stuff going on in India and then in Philippines, following up quotes and stuff. So, and we're hoping and I'll throw this at you, and maybe it's a bit of a plug, I don't know, but as you know, I'm trying to, so I have a philosophy. If we as 8Ball, through our customers and direct ourselves, if we are lucky enough to make, a little bit of coin in a country, we want to go back into the community and help them. So, but not just, I don't want to throw money somewhere and just feel good about myself as, I've helped someone. We want to go to a community, find a family that would never escape the cycle that they're in. So they'd never be able to rise above. So they're always just going to be in poverty, and try to help one person go to school and then maybe feed that family. And I've talked to this about a number of people. And then as that person gets older and we've helped them and they get on their feet, then they bring in 2 more people or 3 more people. So now we've got 4. Then, the old back and forth. Those 4 get 3, there's 12. And a bit like that. But they have to be part of the education process. And it's not just pay for them to go to school. I want to be able to go, that person, what do you want to do? I want to do whatever, business strategy. Fantastic. I'm going to help you. So I'm going to give you lessons and it'll be structured. But then I've got a mate called Nathan Everett. And so I talk to you and you say, oh, I want to be part of this. So every month, Nathan presents on this to there's 20 people and they come online. We have people in the communities making sure they turn up for things like this. But for anyone who wants to be involved, once a year, you've got to get out of your chair and get to Cambodia or to the village in Thailand or wherever we've got people, and we've got to go and get our hands dirty, mate. So you're not just So one bloke said to me, and a good guy, he said, mate, I'll give you some money. I said, no, I'm not accepting it. You must get on a plane, mate. You must put that ladle or the spoon in that bloody rice and feed those people, mate. And we have to have some empathy. So and this is a bit stupid, but if that day people haven't eaten, I'm not eating while I serve these people, mate. We're not eating that day. We're going to serve these people. And for 2 seconds, feel what it's like, and also to develop that relationship. So we can look in that person's eye who are thanking us with a tear in the eye, and for the brief point, and we do, mate, you and I do, but for that brief moment, we understand fully how lucky we are doing what we're doing. We're living a ridiculous life, to be honest, what we're doing. And so, and again, I'm going to go on, mate, but, I did a psych degree when I was young as well, and there's this thing called altruism. And I've had this conversation with lots of people, but when we were young, they talk about altruism and it's doing good and you don't get a reward. And I used to always say, yeah, it's rubbish. I don't believe there's such a thing. And, well, what if you're helping all these people and you get nothing back? And I say, oh, mate, what do you get back is this juicy feeling or whatever that feeling is. And you'll go to a movie and get a good feeling, watch something, or you'll eat something, or you'll drink some alcohol and get a bit drunk and have a good feeling. That feeling you get from people is real. And so I feel
100%.
When someone says, you're a good guy, Gav, you're helping for nothing, rubbish. I get much more back from seeing that tear in someone's eye than if I give someone $200 in Thailand or $500, it's 12,000 baht. And I'm supposed to be a saint, rubbish. What I get back. And so we're trying to do that as well as we go along, and then we want to help one company every 2 months and then get them on their feet, just because we've been around a while, so we've got a little bit to offer. Hopefully we can help people, but as I said, what you get back is much more than what you give it out, that's for sure.
100%, mate. Amazing initiative from you guys.
Well, I know you're on board as well, so it's good.
But it's an amazing initiative, mate, and giving back to those communities, that's huge.
No, excellent, mate. But yeah, it's as I said, I was starting to get a bit of rapport with some of these people, and yeah, it definitely is a really good feeling. It makes you jump out of bed too, not only just doing work, but you almost like some of your work. So you're trying to build something in Cambodia, but part of your drive and your motivation is knowing that I've got to do it, and then I'm going to give these people some of that, and gives me an opportunity to be there as well. So it definitely helps you.
Your work's not transactional. You're there for the prosperity of yourself and your family, obviously, because that's why we're in business. Yeah. But your work shifts from transactional to a long-term partnership where that revenue cycle continues for generations after generations with the skills and with the investment and stuff that you put back in.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of get back to that full circle when we talked about Jim Walker at the start, and I remember he used to talk about relationships, and you talk about it a lot. You hear it from him, and now as he's sort of older and 1 or 2, 400 grey hairs or whatever it is, you go, it's exactly what it is. It's kind of like you live long enough, you learn how to do something. You know how to fix a bike, or you know how to do some business plan, whatever it is, you know how to do. But it's that relationship that allows you to do it. And we're talking about empathy and all that. It's just that, just talking to people, listening to them, fully understanding them, not just lip service, feeling a bit what they're feeling, and then you've got tools because you've been around it long enough. It doesn't mean you're any smarter than anyone. It's just you've been around it. If you've listened enough, you've absorbed something, and yeah, you just go and you do that and help people. So it's just another part of that, I feel
Absolutely,
anyway.
mate. I'm a firm believer in that we're all interconnected at some level.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Well, that's why we've stayed in touch for so long, and there's these other blokes that we know who we keep in touch with a lot. So yeah, it's definitely been an enjoyable journey. Hopefully, there's 1 or 2 years left in it.
Perfect, mate. So we're at 40 minutes at the moment. Have you got any nuggets of wisdom or any last comments that you want to share?
Not like yeah. I think it's what we've covered. So I was chatting to a guy in Jakarta about it. It's really that empathy piece. So whatever you're doing in life, listen and fully try to understand it, and don't assume you understand because your reference point is being born in Australia. Why don't they go and do this, mate? Why don't they just get off there, you insert your word and do this? And you have, say, like an empathy point of someone, so who's been, so we try something and you get knocked back, whatever, but we try something and then there's someone helping and we succeed. But can you imagine some people in society, and let's just talk about overseas so we don't get caught up in issues in our own country, but Myanmar, you go and I'd sort of challenge the people who are watching to go and look how that country's made up. And there's all these different groups. So, the border of China, those guys have got a bit of Chinese background. There's India there, and there's all these sorts of things. And if you're in the certain communities, you try, and mate, you don't try, you're going to get knocked back because you're not the right class of society. So knocked back. What if you're a legend? You try again, and you do 7 times, and you get knocked back 50 times. Let's say you do 50 times, you get knocked back. What are you going to teach your kids? Mate, just go and do that job. Don't try all that because you're going to waste your life. Even if you don't say that in your kids, and then the next generation, it becomes really hard. So it's so I guess the point, what you asked me is, don't just use your own experience. Really try to understand where whoever it is, if you're dealing in Australia, you've got an advantage. But if whoever you're dealing with, try to understand their background, where they've come from, so that's where you can get some empathy of why they're behaving like they're behaving, not just, well, I would have done this. I gave Nathan a chance and he didn't do it. So, you can't use swear words here, but he's the so-and-so. So, no, I'm not going to do that again. But then you understand, Nathan, what happened and, oh, right, so previous life that happened or whatever it is, mate. But yeah, I think you get the point, what I'm trying to say.
I do, mate. I very much do, mate. Well, I'm going to thank you very much for the chat. It's always awesome to catch up with you, mate. I love our chats, and we probably don't do it as much as we should.
Right, daylight savings, mate. It's like the windows get smaller and smaller. But anyway, maybe we'll have to get you to start doing some travel, mate. We'll meet somewhere.
100%. So I've tagged you in the comments. So if people want to connect with you, reach out to Gav, connect with him, follow 8 Ball Global, so you can view the global travels and the adventures. They're awesome photos, mate, too.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And if anyone does send a message, I'm heading into some meetings now, and then I've got another one in 3 hours with some people in Finland. So I might not get back to you straight away, but yeah, certainly will reply back.
Awesome, mate. It was a good chat with you.
Excellent, mate. Yeah, you too, mate. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And just for you, mate, this is a really good initiative. And I can't wait to see where it goes. So I got in my head where this is going to be, and even for having the guts to do it, because I do this sort of thing a little bit. You've taken to another level, and you've had the guts to do it. And I see people commenting, really, really good. So well done, man.
Awesome, mate. Appreciate it.
All the best, bud. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
See you, mate.